My name is Elias Mendes, and I'm a Major General in the United States Army. That used to mean something. In some rooms, it still does. Uniforms get salutes, medals get handshakes, and people stand when I enter. But in my own family, it never meant a damn thing. I found out about my sister's wedding through someone else's Instagram story. A mutuelle acquaintance. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years, who apparently still followed Danielle. The story was grainy, taken under strings of fairy lights, but clear enough. Danielle Monroe in a lace gown, spinning in slow motion beneath a canopy of lanterns, laughing into the shoulder of a tall man I didn't recognize. He was smiling like he already owned the world. They looked happy, and I was nowhere in the frame. I watched the loop play again. And again. No tag, no mention, just a caption in delicate font. She said yes. Monroe Wedding 2023. Underneath. Rows of red hearts, champagne glasses, people I barely remembered from high school gushing congratulations, and one like from my mother, one repost from my father. His caption read, "Family, legacy, love," the kind of words you print on ceramic plates and hang in kitchens you never really cook in. I closed the app, let the silence settle around me like it always did after those three words. Family, legacy, love. They never included me in that equation. The wedding invitation arrived 3 days later. Thick envelope, cream cardstock, silver trim. No name on the front, no handwritten note, just a printed insert with Danielle and her fiancé Matthew's names in flowing cursive. Venue, a vineyard in Hudson Valley. QR code for RSVP. And one line at the bottom, in soft italics. Formal attire. Prefer neutral tones. I read it twice, then turned the card over, looking for anything that said "We want you here." There was nothing, no signature, no warmth, but there was a note. Not from Danielle, not even from the couple, from my mother, typed, folded precisely, tucked beneath the invite like a warning rather than a welcome. If you come, wear beige or gray. Nothing loud. We don't want distractions. Distractions. That's what I'd become to them. I tossed the envelope onto the table and walked away. Didn't look back. I wasn't going. Not out of spite. Spite takes energy. This was something colder. The slow erosion of belonging, of being erased little by little, until even your name felt intrusive. They had spent years perfecting my absence. Why ruin their masterpiece? But that night, around 2:13 a.m., I found myself standing in the dark of my apartment kitchen. Fingers curled around a glass of water I hadn't touched. The only light came from the fridge, humming. That was when it happened. A soft vibration on the marble counter. Not my phone. Not my laptop. The other device, the one I wasn't supposed to still have. Military issue. Secure. Long decommissioned. But never deactivated. I stared at it like it had just come back from the dead. One red light blinking. A single message notification on the encrypted band. Zender. Jason Carter. Jason had been my second in command once. Now he was a private intel consultant in D.C. Off the grid and too smart to waste words. The message read, "They erased you." He didn't. Check your back channel. For a moment, I didn't move. Just stood there, hand hovering over the screen like it might bite. Then instinct took over. I walked to the old gun safe, not for weapons, but for what I kept buried underneath. A private terminal. Military grade. Still connected to the old comms net. Through 6 layers of rerouted encryption, there was one unread message waiting. Anonymous sender. Un traceable signal. It said, "If you still care about your sister, be there. Someone's already watching her." That was it. No threats. No details. Just a statement that sat in my chest like a buried mine. I stared at the screen until it timed out. And then I knew. This wasn't a wedding. It was a setup, and I had 4 days to prepare. The drive to Hudson Valley took 4 hours. 4 hours of watching the world blur into shades of orange and rust and gold. Autumn had always felt like a trick of the eye, beautiful, but rotting underneath. I kept the windows half down. Didn't play music. Didn't want noise competing with the weight inside my head. Somewhere past exit 212, I opened the glove compartment and ran my fingers over the black garment bag folded neatly inside. My uniform. Pressed. Decorated. Sealed in a bag I swore I'd never open again. I hadn't worn it since Fallujah, since everything went sideways, since command turned silent, and the country I bled for decided to erase my name from every clean record it kept. But not all records could be cleaned, and some ghosts don't fade just because the paperwork says they should. By the time I pulled into the Vineyard estate, the sun was folding itself behind a line of dark hills. The air was colder than I expected, the kind of chill that seeps into bone and memory, perfect for a wedding where no one wanted me. The estate looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine, grand stone arches wrapped in ivy, glass windows tall enough to swallow sunsets, a white event tent glowing softly, like a lantern full of secrets. The valet didn't ask my name. He didn't have to. My rental was anonymous enough. The plate said nothing. I stepped out in slate gray, neutral enough to pass, dark enough to vanish. The uniform stayed hidden in the back seat. For now, a young woman at the check-in table glanced up as I approached. Her fingers hovered over a silver iPad. Name? Elias Mendes. Her brows furrowed. She typed. Paused. Typed slower. I'm sorry, she said, voice brittle. I don't see that name on the guest list. Are you with the Hartwell family? I looked her straight in the eyes. I'm the bride's brother. The pause was sharp, almost audible. She blinked once, then looked to her colleague, who immediately turned and vanished into the tent. 30 seconds later, a supervisor-emerged woman in a black tailored blazer, hair pulled tight, headset glinting against her cheekbone. Her smile was calculated. Mr. Mendes, she said, if you'll follow me, no apology, no explanation, just a pivot and a brisk walk. I followed, quiet, controlled. They didn't lead me to the grand hall, or the cocktail veranda, or the reception lawn filled with laughter and photo ops. They led me around the side through a narrow vestibule and into a space marked overflow seating. The door clicked shut behind me. My seat was by the back exit, far enough to be out of frame, close enough to hear the music. I sat, said nothing, adjusted my cuffs. 10 minutes passed before I heard the rustle of expensive silk and familiar footsteps on marble. My mother entered like a queen returning to a court she resented, Judith Monroe in winter white and perfect pearls, her French twist pristine. She saw me, paused. You came, she said. I did. Her eyes moved from my face to my clothes. She nodded once. At least you dressed appropriately. No hug, no warmth, just an audit of presence. Behind her, my father followed. Frank Monroe, silver-haired, double-breasted sweet, still walked like the corporate general he'd always been. He noticed me mid-sentence, speaking to a groomsman. His voice trailed off. He gave a nod that felt more like acknowledging a misplaced lamp, and walked on. I didn't flinch, didn't let it land. I was used to being inventory. The guests kept arriving. Laughter, clinking glasses, scents of lavender and candied citrus riding the evening air. And then I saw him, near the stone fireplace, half shadowed by a hanging fern, a man in a muted gray suit, arms crossed casually, one elbow resting against marble. He didn't belong. I could tell from his posture, relaxed on the surface, but alert underneath. Our eyes met, brief, precise. He gave the faintest nod. Jason. And just like that, the air around me shifted. I wasn't just an uninvited brother anymore. I was exactly where I needed to be. The bridal suite was quiet. Too quiet. Soft candlelight flickered across antique mirrors and the ivory walls of the estate. The kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but control. A silence designed like the rest of this wedding to look perfect. She was alone when I entered. Danielle Monroe, standing in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting the strap of her gown. Her back was to me, but the second she saw my reflection over her shoulder, she froze. You're not supposed to be in here, she said. Her voice clipped, practiced, the voice of someone who spent years rehearsing how not to care. I closed the door gently behind me. And you weren't supposed to be broadcasting encrypted military signals through your dress, I said. She turned, eyes narrowed. What the hell are you talking about? I stepped closer, didn't raise my voice. I saw the AV feed. Someone rerouted it through a proxy. Military pattern. Sloppy masking. The signals pulsing straight from this room. Daniela blinked, just once. That was all it took. For the first time, I saw something real flicker behind the performance. Fear. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice had dropped. I gestured toward the hem of her gown. Show me the lining. Number. She stepped back. This is my wedding, Elias. I don't care what alphabet agency you think you're still part of. I'm not here as a soldier. Exactly, she snapped. You're not anything anymore. The words landed sharp. She meant them to bruise, but I'd taken worse from men in starched collars and polished lies. I didn't move. I just waited. Silence stretched, stuttered. Her breath caught, and finally she broke. There's something wrong with it, isn't there? Her voice, barely audible now. Yes. She turned slowly and lifted the hem of her gown. Her hands trembled. I reached into my coat pocket and slipped on a pair of thin black gloves. Layer by layer, I peeled back the tulle and satin until I found it. A small disc coin-sized, stitched into the inner seam near her left hip, barely visible. Designed to look harmless, its surface pulsed faintly. Active, covert, lethal in the right network. Who gave you this dress? I asked. I already knew the answer. She hesitated. It came through a sponsor. Matt's firm has a friend, he said it was couture. A gift. A gift? I repeated. I pulled a scanner from my clutch, held it close to the thread. A single buzz. DoD signature. Foreign routing path. Masked timestamps. This wasn't surveillance. It was insertion. A live feed masked as a signal from me. I looked at her, dead in the eye. This isn't about your wedding, or even you. You're the conduit. The bait. Danielle sank onto the edge of a velvet bench, her gown pooling like fog around her feet. She buried her face in her hands. I thought you'd come here just to ruin everything. Her voice cracked. I didn't realize I was already part of it. I kneeled in front of her, held out the device gently. No, I said. I came to save it. We didn't have much time. Jason slipped through the service corridor like smoke, silent, exact. He found me just outside the suite, near the side door to the wine cellar. Tell me you saw it, he murmured. I saw 3 things I don't like, I said. He gave a grim nod. I scanned the AV rack. Someone inserted a relay. Not commercial-grade military protocol, but cobbled together. Amateur masking. They're using it to run a false signal over the slideshow. I exhaled through my nose. Live feed? Worse. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a flat velvet box no larger than a deck of cards, and pressed it into my palm. Inside was a secure key. Old rank clearance. My name etched beneath the seal. Jason's voice dropped to a whisper. Temporary authority reinstated. Field use. Your call, General. I stared at the key, then slipped it into my inner pocket. Didn't thank him. Didn't have to. We'd both been through enough to understand the weight of silent gestures. What's it broadcasting? I asked. He tilted his head. A rewritten operation. Doctored logs. Audio overlays. They're trying to make it look like Fallujah was your fault. A chill spread down my spine. Not from surprise, but from recognition. They're burying the original? I asked. Not burying, he said. Replacing. I closed my eyes. 6 years ago. Fallujah had been my last active command. A civilian block gone hot, intel compromised. Ground teams pinned. I'd ordered an override. Extracted survivors. Disobeyed protocol. Saved 23 lives. And still lost everything. No medal. No tribunal. Just a sudden early retirement. And a sealed report that Red Operator failed to follow direct orders. It hadn't made sense. Until now. Jason tapped his earpiece once. They're transmitting from inside the tent. Feed goes live in under 15 minutes. AV is on a loop now. Wedding photos, engagement clips. But the signal's embedded under layer 3. When the groom's speech starts, the video switches. To what? He met my eyes. To you. Giving the wrong order. Civilian casualties. Data log stamped in your name. A total character assassination live. I let that settle, and then I looked down the hill. Through the open flaps of the white tent, hundreds of guests. Cámaras. Press. All ready to watch a perfect wedding unfold. Instead, they were about to watch the final erasure of Major General Elias Mendes, unless we flipped the script. Jason handed me a small transmitter disc. We need 5 seconds inside the AV core. Just 5. And we overwrite the overwrite. I nodded once. 5 seconds. That was all I needed. He started toward the control tent, and then I heard it behind me, from the corridor. A voice. Low, familiar, poisoned with confidence. I should have known you'd crawl your way back to the stage, Elias. I turned. There, standing like a ghost from an old war, was Benjamin Rusk. Chivvis, navy blazer, no insignia, but the same eyes, calculating, controlled, cold. He smiled, like a man watching a fire he started from a safe distance. This day isn't about you, he said. No, I replied. You made damn sure of that. He took a step closer, voice quiet but sharp. You were supposed to vanish, fade. That was the deal. You walk away, I bury the report. But you couldn't help yourself, could you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He wasn't here to threaten. He was here because he'd already won. At least, that's what he thought. He leaned in. Walk away again, Elias. No one here will remember what you say, but they'll never forget what I'll show. E2. I held his gaze, then took one step back, not in retreat, just enough space to reach the transmitter in my coat pocket. You should have made sure, I said, and walked past him. He didn't follow. He didn't have to. He thought I was already too late. The ceremony began at 6 p.m. sharp. Of course it did. Danielle descended the stone steps with precision gown flowing like a whisper, perfume trailing behind her like memory. On her arm, our father, Frank Monroe, the perfect patriarch, walking his daughter toward a life she was never in control of. The string quartet played something classical, Vivaldi, maybe, or something made to sound expensive. Every head turned, every camera lifted. And me? I was still in overflow seating, tucked between a coat rack and the utility door, uninvited, unseen, exactly where they wanted me, but not where I was meant to be. My eyes scanned the tent. Jason stood near the reception bar, half-shadowed by a tall floral centerpiece. To anyone else, he looked like another stiff in a rented tux. But I saw the stance, the angle of his shoulder. He was watching the AV team. He gave me a nod. The signal was still live. The relay sewn into Danielle's dress still pulsed with hidden intent. And we had minutes. I looked around the room. Danielle walked slow, practiced. My mother sat in the front row, spine straight, mouth neutral. Her eyes never once moved toward the back. Toward me, as if I weren't even air in her world. The officiant took the podium, tapped the mic once. Before we begin this union, he said, we'd like to take a moment to honor any veterans in attendance today. If you've served, please rise and be recognized. The moment stretched and stretched further. No one moved until he did. Jason, from the third row, he stood slowly, deliberate, tie loosened, hands behind his back. He turned toward the tent, toward me, and then, in a voice that cut clean through champagne bubbles and polite laughter, he spoke, Major General Elias Mendizmam. He saluted, sharp, formal, unmistakable, and the room shifted, not immediately. First came confusion, then silence, then the turn of heads, dozens of them, and then came her. Danielle, mid-step down the aisle, stopped. Her eyes scanned the crowd, and found me. For the first time that day, maybe the first time in years, my sister actually saw me. I rose, not slowly, not cautiously. Each footstep on the marble floor landed like punctuation marks in a sentence I'd waited 6 years to finish. Murmurs rippled, phones lowered, eyes widened. At the far side of the aisle, seated in the second row, he was there. Benjamin Rusk. Civilian suit. Civilian smile. But I saw it. That flicker. The first crack in his expression. He knew. He hadn't buried me deep enough. I reached the podium just as the slideshow behind the couple began to flicker. Engagement photos blinked. Then stuttered. Jason gave the signal. I tapped the transmitter in my pocket. The screen glitched once, twice, then cleared. In its place, combat logs, body cam footage, heat maps, and one file name in bold white text. Vanguard, backup, EXU, Sir, B. Rusk, FD-13. Gasps. Then came the audio. My voice. Calm. Steady. Civilian presence confirmed. Override initiated. Alpha team, move now. Gunfire. Screams. Then, let her take the fallout. She's replaceable. Rusk's voice. Raw. Unfiltered. Buried for 6 years. Now echoing through a tent filled with polished shoes and monogrammed napkins. Someone dropped their program. Someone else began to cry. Danielle's bouquet trembled in her hand. And, Rusk? He stood, pulled a folded folder from inside his jacket and raised it high. This is a cease and detain order, he barked. This man has accessed classified. No, I said, louder this time, strong enough to carry across tables and silence the string quartet. This is what you spent 6 years trying to erase. Jason flipped the AV feed one more time. Another voice cut in. Male. Confident. Familiar. My name is Derek Shaw. I was there. Everyone turned. At the back of the tent, a man stood, press badge visible, voice unwavering. I'm in the evac footage, he said. General Mendes disobeyed Rusk's order and saved us. More gasps, more phones raised. And then, 2 men entered from the main archway. Suits, badges, federal agents. One of them stepped forward. Mr. Rusk, he said. You are under federal investigation for falsifying national defense intelligence. You'll come with us. Rusk opened his mouth, but he didn't speak, because behind the agents, at the edge of the aisle, stood my father. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't looking through me. He was looking at me, really seeing me. And he didn't look away. The ballroom emptied slowly, not with applause, but with the sound of oxygen returning to lungs. No one danced. No one toasted. No one cared about the cake. On every wall, the footage played in a loop. Body cam angles, thermal scans, and then his voice again. If this goes south, she takes the hit. No reason to burn the rest of command. End of tech. Benjamin Rusk sat slumped in a leather chair in the private lounge behind the reception hall. His tie was askew, his mouth tight, his silence a vacuum where power used to be. Jason stood by the window, arms crossed, watching as agents cataloged Rusk's phone. His tablet. The hard copies he never thought he'd need to burn. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I walked to the old cabinet tucked behind the bar, pulled open the service panel, and there it was. The old field laptop, buried behind drywall and forgotten wiring. Dust-covered, but still alive. I powered it on. Typed the old code, muscle memory did the rest. And just like that, the original logs came to life. Chain of command orders, time-stamped radio comms, satellite overlays, all authenticated. No one had edited these. I placed the laptop on the table in front of Rusk. He didn't look at it. Didn't need to. He knew. You gambled I'd stay silent, I said. My voice calm. Even. He scoffed. You were always a wild card. No, I said. I was the truth you couldn't control. Then I opened one last file. Los Uvofura. Audio only. Rusk's voice. The civilian count won't matter if the narrative sticks. She takes the hit. She's visible. I'm not. And in that moment, something shifted behind his eyes. A crack, not in arrogance, but in armor. He wasn't untouchable anymore. 2 agents stepped forward. One handed me a folded paper. Emergency clearance reinstated. Record expunged. Investigation opened. I didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. Justice doesn't roar. It whispers. As they cuffed Rusk and read him his rights, I looked to the door. My father stood there, still in his wedding suit, his hands clenched at his sides like they were gripping memory. But he didn't turn away. Not this time. He watched the man who tried to erase me get removed from the room I was never supposed to be in. And I stayed. Sanghomseo. The Monroe family kitchen looked exactly as I remembered it. But somehow, nothing like before. Sunlight spilled across granite counters, soft and golden. The coffee machine gurgled faintly. Cinnamon rolls untouched, still warm, sat on a porcelain plate. For a moment, I stood in the doorway, not sure if I should step in. Then Danielle looked up from the table. No makeup, hair tied in a loose knot, the wedding dress gone, and with it the distance in her eyes. I saved your seat, she said. She'd pulled out the old corner chair, the one I always took as a teenager, closest to the door. I sat. Jason was already there. Sleeves rolled, eyes tired but alert, a mug of coffee in his hands, black. No sugar. My mother stood at the counter. Judith. Still graceful, still rigid. But when she poured a second cup mine, she added just the right amount of cream. The way I used to take it. Before war and protocol turned everything bitter. She placed the mug in front of me. Her hands trembled just slightly. "You're wrinkled," she murmured, brushing down the lapel of my jacket. Her fingers lingered a second longer than they needed to, as if trying to smooth something she didn't know how to name. I didn't flinch. I let her. My father came in last. He looked older in daylight, or maybe just unarmored. He buttered toast in silence, didn't say anything, but every few minutes his eyes flicked toward me, and didn't look away. There were no apologies, no speeches, no declarations, just presence. And this time, that was enough. Halfway through breakfast, soft footsteps padded across the hardwood. A little girl peeked around the corner, maybe 6, maybe 7, holding something small in her hand. Danielle smiled. "Elias, this is Jenna, Matt's niece. She stayed here last night." Jenna stepped forward slowly. She placed a tiny daisy pin on the table beside me. Pearl-studded, handcrafted. "My dad said." She hesitated, then continued. "You're the reason he came home." My throat tightened. I picked up the pin, fastened it to my lapel, then nodded. "Then your dad's a good man." She grinned, disappeared into the living room. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, something had changed. Not loudly, but permanently. I was no longer the ghost on the guest list. I was back, and this time, no one needed to say I belonged. I already knew.